exposed. When you have the breach is probably the question that you need to ask.
it-
Indian regulation under the RBI
Yes.
doesn't allow you to pay ransom. The cyber miscreant can find access to your system. Even if you're a manufacturing unit, they need to disrupt only two positions. One, manufacturing if they can, if it's digitized. B, dispatches. The moment you disrupt dispatches, your cyber attack is triggered. I want to do everything in my power to be able to check whether I am exposed or not. But the reality is that the hacker that sits in an Estonia or godforsaken place elsewhere in the world is far more intelligent than the people that are sitting in this room in front of computers. They need to breach once. You need to protect each breach.
Right.
So you have to be 24/7 there. They need to just put bots and breach once.
Right.
Why does the Navy or the Army do defense exercises even though there's no war? Because they're preparing for wartime. I think all our corporates need to be ready. जो लड़ाई है, this is imminent. ये लड़ाई होगी. And जितना preparation आज कर लें वो बेहतर है. बाद में preparation का time नहीं मिलेगा.
Welcome to Digital Frontlines, a podcast series by Policy Bazaar for Business. Today, in this podcast, we dissect more into the cyber risk and the cyber security solutions for any other corporates. So we have with us Mr. Avya Kapoor, who's the Director Operations at Proclaim. Welcome to the show, Avya. Thank you so much for taking out time. And we look forward to a very interactive session with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Amitabh, and a pleasure being here as always.
Thank you so much. To start with this first podcast, Avya, what exactly is covered under a cyber insurance policy? When we say it's a ransomware attack, it's an attack on IT security solutions, what exactly is covered under the cyber insurance?
It's a good question because not everybody is aware of what cyber attacks are all about and what the policies under the insurance domain cover.
Sure.
Within the Indian domain today, the policies are quite vast. They are very, very broad. And they cover the insurance domain for ransomware. They cover them for PR, business interruption, and all aspects that would be closely related to cyber intrusions, which includes even data reconstruction and data securities. I think it is a broad policy. It is a policy that enables a larger security or a larger infrastructure awareness for our clients.
Okay. So when we say it covers the cyber security, would that mean that any kind of a data which gets leaked into the dark web, how does the policy respond to it? Is it a ransomware that is asked? Is it that the data reconstruction cost is needed? What exactly goes into this?
So actually it does everything. So the policy will start with understanding or arresting a cyber intrusion. Once the intrusion is understood, discovered, arrested, it will then go on to rebuilding the data to get servers and equipment and systems back online. And once it's done that, if the insured finds or the client finds that there has been a data leak, then it also has the capability of managing dark web monitoring to ensure that the data leak is not on the dark web. And lastly, as you mentioned, ransomware. Now that in itself is a very precarious conversation, but yes, the policy does allow you indemnity for ransom attacks and for ransom payments. But the only caveat would be that you need to be certain that you need to pay this, and you need to pay this in a compliant manner because the Indian regulation under the RBI doesn't allow you to pay ransom. So how you pay it, how you end up doing it, those are conversations that are separate. But yes, the policy allows you to do it. That's the best part. But as I said, again, it's all of these costs associated with reaching out to the regulator, making sure that you do these things. These are all covered under the policy. So the policy gives you the flexibility to ascertain your position and then move to pay or not pay thereafter the ransom.
Once there is a cyber attack, but before that also, because after a cyber attack, I understand there are a lot of things that go involved into ascertaining the quantum of a loss, ascertaining what impact it has made on the business continuity, and multiple things. But take a step back. Is there any way people can identify what's the actual loss limits they should be taking into a policy? because this comes in as a very random thing
Indeed.
and very difficult to ascertain as to what's the financial impact it would have.
Indeed, and that's a really good question, Amitabh. I think currently is a question
Yeah.
that everybody is struggling with. Not everybody has an answer to it, and I don't think even today, if we answer it, it would be an answer for everybody, because
Sure.
one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
But I think there are certain measures that can be considered. Some of them are that, okay, if you're an entity interacting with B2C, now your data leak exposures and your exposures associated with customers, retail
Yeah.
customers,
Yeah.
is rather high. So you would want to understand what is the impact that you would have on your customers,
Sure.
and then peg your limit around that.
Would that mean it depends on the kind of business somebody
Absolutely.
is into? If it is a B2B business, they'll have a lesser exposure.
I
If
wouldn't
it's
say
B2C, it is higher.
so. Funnily, I wouldn't say they have a lesser exposure, but what
Okay.
I'd say is that your methodology of calibrating exposure would be different. So
Okay.
now, when we come to a B2B, let's
Yeah.
say you're a manufacturing unit
Sure.
and you have capability of supplying a product to market,
Yeah.
but with a cyber attack, you either cannot manufacture or cannot dispatch.
Okay.
In both instances, you are at risk for
Okay.
interruption of business.
Sure.
So now, how do you peg yourself on the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
quantum or the limit?
Right.
You figure out how much time does it take you to build your systems again first.
Okay.
Primarily,
Sure.
it depends on how do you take your backups, how frequently you take them, and
Sure.
whether those backups are sufficient for your rebuilding systems.
Okay.
If they are, usually a 15 to 20 day interruption would be any which ways a given. So you're looking at what exposure that you would be faced by your entity
Yeah.
in a span of 20 odd days. And
Okay.
that should be, again, a pegging stone for you.
Sure.
But that's,
Sure.
again, a pegging stone for the business
Right.
interruption.
Right.
Under the cyber policy, you need to peg each exposure, which means you need to peg data leak, you
Sure.
need to peg data reconstruction,
Sure.
you need to figure out whether it's business interruption or not,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And all of this
Okay.
adds up. It's not a singular
Right.
position. So all
Right.
of this adds up,
Yeah.
and then you take your limit. I
Okay.
would suggest that anybody doing a business of, let's say, 200 crores plus,
Yeah.
whether you're thereafter 500 crores or not, it's immaterial. I think you still need a cyber policy of up to 25 crores at this
Oh.
stage.
So is there any way, any thumb rule that people can use it to arrive at the right limits on the policy?
Very difficult, Amitabh. The funny bit is, a threat actor or a cyber breach, once it happens and a miscreant has
Yeah.
attacked you and put a ransom there, it is up to him today whether he's fought with his wife or not.
Oh, okay.
Because if he's fought with his wife and he wants more money,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
may charge you 5 million bitcoins, and that's
Oh.
going to wipe out your limit. But
Yes.
on the other hand, if he's had a good day and
Yeah.
he's benevolent,
Sure.
it's probable that he'd only ask for 10,000 bitcoins. So
Okay.
it all depends on what the mood of the hacker is,
Yes.
and it all depends on
Yeah.
how easily you can rebuild. Because going to the hacker is not the option, but
Sure.
how you want to rebuild is the option here.
So it's like how quickly we come back to the normal operations is the key.
Yes.
But help us understand. On this, all the corporates would have a business continuity plan, which immediately gets enforced once they see that there is a cyber attack. Because you are an expert on the claims, the loss adjuster, what role do you play to make sure that the business quickly comes back to normal? Secondly, do you also help in negotiating as to how and what steps should be taken so that there is a lesser impact on the business overall?
Absolutely, Amitabh. We are, once a cyber breach occurs, we are responsible for engaging the entire ecosystem to be able to address the exposure and
Sure.
bring our customers back on their normal operating platforms as
Sure.
soon as possible.
Okay.
For this, as you said,
Yeah.
we will first look at the business continuity plan that they have in place.
Sure.
Usually, these plans are to do with relocation of servers.
Okay.
If you look at most business continuity plans, they are not currently addressing cyber exposures.
Okay.
They are addressing exposures associated with physical risk.
But help me understand, because recently there is a lot of surge
Yes.
in the cyber attacks. So why are corporates not incorporating this cyber security plan as a business continuity into their ERMs and the business continuity plans that they have?
So I think it's happening.
Yeah.
I think it's slower than what it ought to be. 2014 to 2020, we saw a lot of cyber attacks of large tech companies or banks or whatever
Sure.
else. These have been entities that have addressed this in their ERM.
Sure.
But today we see a lot of exposures of manufacturing units.
Okay.
And believe it or not, 2020 to 2025, they did not feel the need to address
Right.
cyber exposure in their ERM.
Sure.
Today, I would say yes, they are getting equipped, they are addressing it, but are we fully functionally
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
No, we're not.
Is
From
it
it.
because more of a digitization is happening, more of artificial intelligence coming
Yes.
into even the manufacturing setups?
Absolutely.
That's why they are more exposed to
Absolutely.
the cyber attack?
The cyber miscreant can find access to your system, even
Okay.
if you're a manufacturing unit. They need to disrupt only two positions. One, manufacturing, if they can, if it's digitized manufacturing. B, dispatches. Today, with everything on GST,
Yeah.
the moment you disrupt dispatches,
Sure.
your cyber attack is triggered. So it's a very funny bit, and I keep telling this to my
Yeah.
team as well, that in 2014 to 2020, we never said that the cyber breach would result in a business impact for a manufacturing unit,
Oh, okay.
because
okay.
manufacturing would be ongoing.
Yeah.
Today, we are very certain that a cyber
Sure.
breach will disrupt manufacturing units also,
Yeah.
because dispatches will get affected. So it's
Right.
a very different
Yes.
environment that we
But
live in.
that means it would spread across all sectors. It can be
Yes.
logistics, it can be
Everything.
manufacturing, IT,
No one
financial
is safe, my
services has
friend.
always been there.
No one is safe, my friend. No one is safe.
Oh, okay.
Everybody.
Okay.
So we've had in the last, so I've been doing cyber now for 15 years.
Yeah.
We started with obviously tech companies being breached and
Sure.
banks being breached, healthcare thereafter.
Yeah.
Today, we are at a place where manufacturing, startups,
Okay.
individuals, obviously, yes.
Sure.
And other than individuals, we're also looking at normal aggregators who have no money to pay, even
Okay.
they are being breached. So
Okay.
anybody and everybody in this
So
environment.
is it because the aggregators have that data stored in the system,
Absolutely.
which makes them more vulnerable to these attacks?
Two aspects. They have data stored,
Okay.
which is B2C and B2B data.
Yeah.
Also, their entire business is dependent
Sure.
on the IT platform that they aggregate through.
Right.
So once you bring down the aggregation platform,
Yeah.
you're at risk. You're
Yes.
you're
The whole
vulnerable now.
business stops. then.
Exactly. So
Okay.
anybody and everybody today, from a hospital to a aircraft to a company to a
Sure.
Boeing, everybody is vulnerable today.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So, any tips you can give to make a very robust business continuity plan, which is helpful for people to understand that this all goes on at the time of the claim? This is something which is being checked by the insurance company, which you also provide expertise
Yes.
as a loss adjuster there. What should be the core focus, 3 or 4 points that people should look at into their business continuity plans?
Sure. So whilst it is very peculiar to every industry, I'll attempt to do a very brief version of this. So under business continuity, primarily you need to look at whether you have backups or not. And for that,
Okay.
you have to have hygiene in your system.
Sure.
You need to have backups every 15 days.
Sure.
Those backups should be gold copies of your system,
Okay.
so that you do not have to go elsewhere to
Yeah.
re-procure data or re-procure backups. Once you've done that, I think that's half the battle won, because now you're
Sure.
not at risk, or you cannot be held to ransom by the threat actor. That's the primary position. Thereafter, you are now expected to rebuild, for which you need an ecosystem, because your internal teams are not going to be enough. I recently did a cyber attack where we had 122,000 endpoints that needed to be redone.
Okay.
Over not just the
So,
domestic.
what exactly are the endpoints?
Endpoints would be the laptops, computers, and servers.
Oh, okay.
All of them
Sure.
had to be hygienically sifted
Yeah.
through, cleaned, and then put back online with
Okay.
the previously available data. And that is a
Okay.
task that is time consuming.
Yes.
It cannot be done internally. It has
Sure.
to be done externally. So
Sure.
you need to have in your ERM plans the ecosystem available to you. And if
Okay.
you do not have it, then we are available. Your insurance ecosystem is available to provide this for you. This particular matter that I'm talking about, we did 62 jurisdictions for 122,000 endpoints.
Oh, okay.
And all these jurisdictions had to have
Yeah.
people physically deployed first, then obviously done remotely,
Sure.
whatever needed to be done. So imagine all of this taking time, and time is now of the essence, because your
Yeah.
business is interrupted, or your
Yes.
operations
Yes.
are interrupted.
And this additional cost also gets covered under the policy?
Absolutely,
Okay.
because the policy is there for
Yeah.
every expenditure you make in suing or coming out of
Okay.
a cyber breach.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all of this stands covered, and we paid through the various vendors that were appointed directly, so that even the insured does not need to pay directly to them from their bank account.
Okay, so that means the insurance company pays it directly to
It
those
can be done.
vendors.
It can be done. There is a provision under the policy where remittance can be directly done as well, especially when it's overseas jurisdictions
Right.
where you may not have capability of doing it.
Yeah.
Also, remember, when a cyber attack happens, you don't have capability of remitting money anymore because
Yes.
your SAP
the
systems,
systems are blocked. So
financial
you cannot,
systems are
yes,
blocked.
Absolutely.
So the only way you can do this is
Yeah.
by having an ecosystem that's willing to pay for you.
okay.
And that ecosystem is developed through
Yes.
people like ourselves, where everything is in place.
Yeah.
Once the trigger happens, we
Sure.
mobilize entire teams in various jurisdictions to be
Okay.
able to address the issue, inclusive of defense if you need to do defense in any jurisdiction.
Okay.
Right? So again, it is
So
a
that
very
means it's, when different jurisdictions are involved, it's more of a global policy that we may say.
absolutely.
And you need expertise in different jurisdictions because everywhere the laws are different.
Absolutely. So the GDPR laws in
Yeah.
Europe today, are, whilst they are transcending to India, they're
Yes.
very different and applied very differently in Europe versus how they're applied in India.
Sure.
Similarly, a GDPR version of the law
Yes.
is available in the Middle East.
Right.
It's a more diluted version, but it's still
Okay.
available there. So you need to be aware of
Yeah.
how you're going to react to the particular jurisdiction,
Yes.
because you don't want to do too much
Yeah.
and you don't want to do too little either.
Right.
So you need to
Right.
be aware of how you're going to react to the regulation in the
Yes.
jurisdiction applicable
Sure.
to be able to address the issue and not have regulatory investigations brought against you. Because again, regulatory investigations are covered under the policy. Fines
Sure.
and penalties are covered under the policy.
Right.
So we as
So I think this is the only policy, or maybe one of the very few policies where fines and penalties also get covered.
civil fines and penalties.
Civil
again,
fine penalties.
so criminality is an aspect
Yes.
that all insurers are scared of. So
Yeah.
we will deter from doing that,
Sure.
but civil
Sure.
fines are covered.
Yes.
And these civil fines, again, ensuing from the cyber event,
Right.
are covered.
Right.
And eventually, as I said, you may not be aware of each regulation of each jurisdiction, but if your ecosystem or the partners that you choose,
Sure.
they are aware, then I think life becomes easier because you rely on their direction to be
Sure.
able to address the exposure.
So that means there's a lot of work that goes into after a cyber attack is reported to the insurance company,
Indeed.
and I think a lot of professionals you need to apply, you need to appoint, you need to have a lot of people who are aware
Yes.
of these international jurisdictions.
Absolutely.
So I mean, choosing the right partner and the people who can actually help them at the time of claim is one of the key
Precisely.
areas.
Precisely. Again, this is not built overnight.
Yeah.
We have been doing this for 15 odd years.
Sure.
I think the first 3 or 4 years we struggled as well. But I
Okay.
think today, as an entity and as an individual, we can proudly confirm that we've handled more than 500 cyber exposures
Oh,
globally.
excellent. Okay.
And all these exposures have been addressed in a compliant manner in the relevant.
These are spread across various industries.
Absolutely.
So we cannot say that these are 3 or 4 industries which are immune to cyber attacks.
Not at all. I think it's a matter of time only.
Yeah.
Everybody is exposed. When you have the breach is probably the question that you need to
So
ask.
it can also be a case where the attacker is already in your system,
Oh, yes.
monitoring it throughout for maybe 6 months, and they choose the right time to attack. Is this true or is this not
So
true?
you've heard about sleeping cells, I'm sure.
Okay.
So sleeping cells
Sleeper
exist.
cells, what we talk
Exactly.
about.
So they exist in the cyber world as well. They could be present in your system even today.
Sure.
We recently did a cyber exposure where a pharmaceutical company was involved. The sleeper was laterally moving within the infrastructure, IT infrastructure of the client for over 18 months.
Okay.
And it got discovered only 18 months later. And the beauty of this policy is that it does not talk about the ingress exposure. It talks about discovery exposure. Once it's
Sure.
discovered is when the
Yeah.
policy triggers.
But if somebody is already sitting in the system, because there are vulnerability tests that also the insurance company conducts, a lot of partners also do it. We also do that. And we fail to identify in many cases that there is
You will.
a breach. But then what is the relevance of those?
The relevance is being safe. So, I mean, relevance is that I want to have brakes in my car. I don't want to be without brakes. That's
Sure.
the relevance, right?
Okay.
I want to do everything in my power to be able to check whether I am exposed or not.
Sure.
But the reality is that the hacker that sits in an Estonia or in a godforsaken place elsewhere in the world is far more intelligent than the people that are sitting in this room or any other room in front of computers. Their main focus is to attack and breach. Funnily, they have all the time in the world. They need to breach one. Thereafter, they can make...
it's a chain reaction which happens and they get into the whole system.
They need to breach once. You need to protect each breach.
Right.
So you have to be 24/7 there. They need to just put bots and breach once. So brute force attack is something that is still used very, very efficiently by attackers. What is a brute force attack? It's very simple that they have an array of passwords on the dark web. They push those passwords through the servers and repeatedly punched those passwords through the server. And if any one of them works, or if any one of them
they get an entry into
the system. So point here that I'm trying to make is that you will be breached eventually. When you become a target is a question that you can only ask, but you will be breached eventually. The idea is to take all efforts to be able to make yourself better, secure, and systems are less vulnerable. Because it will take more time, so he will lose. So the attacker may lose interest. But if it takes lesser time, the attacker will not lose interest.
Any of the industry we talk about, the attack is bound to happen. Most probably, we do not know when it's going to happen, and also it needs a lot of work to be done after the attack is there, where your support comes in, and they're choosing the right insurance policy.
Absolutely. I think the work pre-attack is only to ensure protection. Thereafter, I think the larger part of the work happens with making sure what you're going to do when the breach happens and being able to do it. Why does the Navy or the Army do defense exercises even though there's no war? Because they're preparing for wartime. So I think it's a good thing to do where even entities prepare for war by doing exercises which are which seem redundant, but they will come in handy when the war happens.
So is it something that all the corporates should also be doing it?
Bilkul, Amitabh. I think all our corporates need to be ready. ये जो लड़ाई है, this is imminent, ये लड़ाई होगी, and जितना preparation आज कर लें वो बेहतर है, बाद में preparation का time नहीं मिलेगा. So like our defense forces, they prepare and they wait. I think our corporates need to prepare.
So it's only a matter of time when we see that this would happen.
Absolutely.
Any of the live examples or cases which happened in the industry, of course, without naming any of the corporates, where you feel that maybe they were very well prepared, they managed it very well. Maybe on a second case where we find that the company was not too well prepared to take on those challenges, and what exactly happened? If you could just briefly help us understand that.
So I'll do my best. I'll try my best to do this. But so funnily in India, everything in the last maybe 5 years or 7 years has been digitized completely. So even a normal acquisition of customer today for any company, whether it's lending, whether it's insurance, whether it's doing anything, it's all on a digital platform. And we've recently found ourselves in a very large case, a case involving about $13 million of exposure by the end of it in India, where the company was in a lending business, but entirely digitized lending. And thus, the company, once it was breached, all its systems were down and couldn't do anything with respect to lending. What was good about this company was that because they had, prior to 5 years, been manual and been in a domain where they were manually able to do things, they were capable of going back to prehistoric times.
So they went back to the basics.
Absolutely.
Which was when the systems are not right, वो हाथ से करते थे, तो वो बिल्कुल उस पे चले गए.
आपको याद होगा, Amitabh, very recently there was a crowd, and this is in the public domain, so I'm capable of stating it. CrowdStrike attack tha where all airlines went down for a reasonable period of time. I think it was 18 hours or so. It was in the news that Indigo was the only airline that actually went back to manual boarding passes and was able to fly their planes, because planes were flying. The problem was that you could not get people checked in. And that is what was hampering the airline business. So I think what was good about these exposures were that their ERM was built to be able to go prehistoric. Which is something that not many ERMs are capable of building today. And I think we should encourage ERMs to have that avenue also. On the other hand, we've seen players where once the breach happens, I think everything is stalled completely,
Sure.
and they have no capability of redoing or rebuilding the system
Sure.
till the IT system comes back online.
Okay.
And in a very recent example where we did this for a crowdfunding agency,
Yeah.
it was a similar case where they were not capable of taking funds because it's a
Sure.
crowdfunding business, not
Okay.
capable of taking funds anymore.
Oh,
And if they, because their system is totally IT driven, totally
Yeah.
online,
sure.
there was no other way of doing it
Right.
other than rebuilding the business.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you know, there are
So it's like the people should be moving forward towards the digitization, the new age, but at the same time, the ERMs or the business continuity plan should be capable of
absolutely.
doing it if tomorrow something happens, a manual or an alternate.
It should be a temporary solution, but it should be a solution that is available to the
Sure.
to the corporate.
Yeah.
If it is not available, I think your exposures are bigger.
Oh, okay.
So that our position as a loss adjuster would be
Yes.
primarily to come
Yeah.
into the system and say, can you do something which is manual and continue business or not?
Sure.
And if you cannot, then we will
Right.
participate in that
Right.
conversation separately.
Thank you so much, Abhya. We got a good insights into what a cyber attack is, how the insurance policy works, what steps should be taken, and what are the exposures. Thank you so much for taking out time and being with us on this podcast.
Thank you very much, Amitabh. It was a pleasure being here. It was something that tickles the conversation, tickles the
Yeah.
grey cells. So thank you very much for having us here as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So I think you all would have enjoyed and understood, learned a lot about the cyber policies, the cyber attacks, and what goes on into any of the corporates. We will come back to you again on picking up the new features and the new things that a cyber attack is exposed to in our future podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for listening to this podcast from Policy Bazaar for Business.